Live stream. So this one's called um, let's talk about how your wife will despise you after a child is born. Guys, I've been married before and divorced. I had to divorce my ex-wife, and I can tell you the dynamic between you and your significant other changes after you get married. I don't have any children. And so I kind of looked into this because I found a really long article on the BBC that we're going to go over most of it later. It's kind of a long one, but it's really, really important that we go through it. The article, it said that having a baby will affect your marriage when a child is born. And so they had different testimonials about, who felt like who was most affected when a child was born. And of course, it was mostly women complaining about men. Guys, look, marriage in the red pill space, they say marriage is becoming a rich person's institution because the divorce rate drops when a household income, I think it drops to 30% or 20% if you have a household income of over $200,000 or more, but that's not most of us. We're still at about the 55 to 60% range. And in the black community, if you're black like me, it's about 80%. So, uh, guys, don't get married in this current day and age, okay? And b- because everything will change. And then even if things change in a tolerable way after you get married, if some guys can go years without sex, some guys can deal with the emotional abuse and the whole happy wife, happy life culture for years and years and years. But when a child is born, man, I'm telling you, I have a article, a YouTube video, and another article saying that your wife will literally grow to despise you, which is sad because here, let's go over a couple of things. First off, w- y- society completely discounts what men have to go through during a pregnancy. You guys know that during a pregnancy, women work less hours and men work more hours. It's a fact. Men start planning for what's going to happen when the baby comes, how the couple is going to pay for the baby. Women get really caught up in this whole, "Oh, I'm pregnant," and the here and the now, my baby shower, what's the name gonna be? But us men, we're trying to figure out the logistics of having this child, and that's why men get so afraid. Women are like, "Oh, men don't wanna step up." It's because men, we're asking ourselves, "How are we gonna pay for this thing?" Women are they don't see it because they get so caught up in the pregnancy and the baby. But men, we try to figure out how are we gonna live? How are we gonna pay for all this stuff? Okay? Society has completely devalued what a man brings to the table during a pregnancy and childbearing. And also, there is a culture where after a baby is born, the woman's way is assumed to be the right way at all times in every aspect. And so your whole life will be lived through her lens and her emotions. No, it's crazy, guys. I'm telling you, you gotta be careful. You gotta be careful about the type of woman that you're bringing into your life, the type of woman that you marry, and the type of woman you have kids with, and you have to anticipate these changes because these changes will come. S- And society perpetuates all this. You'll see stories online about how this mother made it through and how this mother focused on her career while still having, still having a child, or how this mother paid off her student loans with children. And they'll put at the very last paragraph that she had a husband while she was doing it. Guys, we live in this clown world where they just undervalue men in relationships, men in marriage, fathers during parenting. Men bring stability. Freaking, we can see down the road when it comes to cost. We're problem solvers. We're cost benefit calculators. We're all these different things. So this is the article that initially got my interest into this subject. Let me present this here real quick. It says you will. Look at this headline. It says, "Y you will hate your husband after your kid is born." Let's blatantly say it. Don't tell any don't let anyone tell you otherwise. This is by Jancy Dunn. Look, it just blatantly says it. Ladies, you will hate your husband after your kid is born. Yikes. So it says, this lady had to write a book called How to Not Hate Your Husband After Kids. Yikes, guys. Like, I don't have any kids, and stuff like this is why. So 2 months into our daughter's existence, my husband Tom and I nearly came to blows over whose turn it was to empty the diaper genie, whose plastic entrails had become bloated and coiled like a postprandial Burmese python. Normally, we're peaceable types, so the volcanic ferocity of our anger surprised us both. I remember glancing down at my hands, clutching the genie sack, and envisioning them around Tom's neck. When he yelled that he did it last time, I hollered back that I carried and delivered the baby the last time. This was a this was a tired, if effective, retort. And see, that's what it comes down to, guys. Society has romanticized and overblown the whole process of women giving birth. Women have less children now. More women don't even want to have kids now. But supposedly now, like giving birth is a superpower that all men must bow down to. Well, she had your child. So, guys, I'm telling you, this is making the case for having kids in this modern age, doesn't it? Says on this upcoming day of this is Mother's Day. On this upcoming day of celebrating mothers, here's a cautionary note. Something many mothers to be don't expect when they're expecting. If you have a husband, you will hate him when your kid is born. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't be fooled by the pictures on your social media feed of your friends serenely beaming with their infants. When they're not letting you know they're hashtag so blessed, they're probably fighting. This is just like those. You guys ever watch those Lifetime or Hallmark romance movies? Whenever I visit my mom, she always has those on, right? And those movies always end when the couple gets together, but it doesn't keep showing what happens afterwards because afterwards is not a pretty picture. That's why. Perhaps the single most widely cited piece of research on marriage and children comes from couples therapists John and Julie Gottman, who found that 67% of couples are less satisfied with their marriage after having a baby. 67%, guys. Yikes. A 2009 study of first time parents in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that a scant 7% of mothers reported feeling more satisfied with their marriage. 7%. So 93% of you guys, your wife is going to feel less satisfied after the kid is born, compared with 15% of fathers. As of now, the available research is much more robust for heterosexual couples. Many factors conspire to shorten a new parent's fuse: hallucinatory fatigue, zigzagging hormones, a fraught learning curve, and as one paper I read noted succinctly, increased interactions with medical professionals. All the advice of new parents about sleep schedules and burping techniques would be much more helpful if the belligerence of the early days of parenthood was more openly addressed, as well as how gendered that unhappiness often is. Take the contested terrain of sleep deprivation. Researchers from the UK Mind Lab International found that while a baby's cry was the number one sound most likely to wake a woman, it didn't even figure into the male's top 10, lagging behind car alarms and strong wind. They theorize that these differing sensitivities may have an evolutionary basis. Women are more attuned to threats to their offspring, while men are more responsive to threats of the clan. That's 100% true. That is 100% true. Men have to be aware as to what's going on for the safety of everybody. And we all know that women are only concerned about themselves and their kids. Think about it, guys. When you're with a girl and you're out in public, who's the one aware of where you're walking? Who's around you? The man. And women will fight with you. If you try to tell them to do something different because something isn't safe, let's not go into that club. Let's not walk down that alley. The modern woman will fight you over your evolutionary instincts to keep her out of danger. So, of course, this is true. It's not till a child is born that a woman starts to really give a dang about anyone but herself. And even that's questionable nowadays. We see a, a lot of these modern mothers who want to have a baby, but still want to put their career and their success and education over their children. If women are breastfeeding, they typically wake 2 to 3 times a night to nurse, which wreaks havoc with their REM sleep cycle. When children move past babyhood, working moms are still 2.5 times as likely as working fathers to interrupt their sleep to take care of others. And why is that? Is because the man still has to work to be the breadwinner to bring money into the house. That's why. Men, we need our sleep so we can go to work the next day and keep getting that paycheck. Guys, 70% of households in the United States, the man is still the breadwinner. 70%. So, ladies, let your man sleep. He has to get up and go to work tomorrow. Um, This is not the case with fathers. Earlier this year, researchers from Georgia Southern University found that while women with children were getting insufficient sleep, the presence of children had no effect whatsoever on men's sleeping patterns. Okay, ladies, I guarantee you it does. It does at the beginning, but once again, we're cost benefit calculators. We will find a way. Guys, we get used to noises real quick. How do you think guys work on construction sites, machine shops? Manufacturing factories. You know how much noise a man has to get used to work in those environments? You think a baby's cry is gonna stop him? Nuh-uh, from getting sleep? Heck no. Uh-uh. Guys, w we'll have a beat on how much sleep that we need to be able to get through work the next day, and nothing is gonna stop us from getting that amount of sleep. So the odds are high that you will fight over who gets up with your offspring at night. If I heard the slightest whimper from our daughter, I would rocket out of bed like a Delta Force commando, given the go signal for a nighttime raid. In the meantime, he stored peacefully. Perhaps it's not surprising that in the U.S. government's American Time Use Survey, women reported feeling significantly more fatigued than fathers in all four major life categories: work, housework, leisure, and childcare. Now, the magic word is uh, women reported feeling significantly more fatigued. There will also be fights about chores and childcare. While the lives of women, who now make up almost half of the U.S. labor force, have changed radically in the past few decades, the behaviors of their mates has not changed quite as much. That's because a man's role in this is simple: keep going to work, keep bringing home the money to keep paying the mortgage and paying the bills. See, men, we haven't changed in the last 15 years. Women and their expectations have. So I take this as a compliment. A few depressing lines from a 2012 study of first time parents neatly summed up the colossal asymmetry I've experienced with my husband. As found in prior research, mothers experience unmet expectations with fathers doing less than mothers expected. Fathers, on the other hand, experience overmet expectations with mothers doing more than fathers expected. And once again, this is all based on feelings and the fact that society perpetuates this culture where women giving birth is like, you know, a miracle. I hate to tell you this, lady, but a lot of women give births every single day, and I'm hoping we can get to the point when before I leave this planet where it's like, you know what was special? My mom's mom had 8 kids on a farm in Alabama. 8 kids. That's special. I thought I had married an evolved guy, one who had assured me when I was pregnant that we would divide up the work equally. Yeah, right after our baby was born, we backslid into hidebound mid-century gender roles as I energetically overmet my expectations. Yeah, well, let's ask him about that. Let's ask him. I was feeding the baby, so I started cooking for the whole family. Pre-baby, Tom and I had alternated. I was laundering our daughter's absurdly large mountain of soiled onesies, so I took over laundry duty. Soon I was the expert in changing a diaper. Yeah, well, did he pick up work hours? Probably. Did he get a second job? Probably. What did he start aspiring for a promotion at work? Yeah, probably. Men start working more work hours when a child, when a woman is pregnant and a child is born. This is a fact. You can look it up. We're not alone. A 2015 Ohio State study of working couples found that men did a fairly equal share of housework until that is, they became dads. By the time the baby had reached 9 months, the women had added more than 2 hours of daily work, the men a mere 40 minutes. And I guarantee you, all that work, the woman thinks that it's her way to do it or the highway. And men, we get tired. Because here's the thing, the problem with that is that a woman will say, do it this way, and you'll do it that way. And some days she'll feel like it's enough. Some days she feel like it isn't. And then women will use that kind of work as a reason to pick a fight because these women, they're out of shape. They got stretch marks, all this stuff, and a lot of modern women feel like a fight is you showing affection towards them. So women will take over this work and use it as a reason to fight with their husband. And Tom, while a kind, sensitive sort of person, rarely seemed to notice that I needed a hand, lounging on the couch and happily playing social chess on his phone while I simultaneously tended to our child, emptied the dishwasher, and made dinner. I wonder if she was a stay-at-home mom. If she was a stay-at-home mom, she has nothing to complain about. Social psychologists say that men simply feel more entitled to leisure time. It's because men work harder jobs and longer hours. That's why. Researchers for the UCLA Center on Everyday Lives of Families found that a father in a room by himself was the person space configuration observed most frequently in the case study of 32 families at home. It's because men, we don't want to be nagged, we just want to be left alone. There have been studies that show that most men who have stressful jobs, when they come home, give them like 15 minutes, give them an hour to themselves, just a little bit of time, because they have to get up and go to work tomorrow. A UCLA study of married couples found that at the end of a workday, women's stress levels went down if their husbands pitched in with more housework. No surprise there. The mind boiling part is that men's stress levels fell if they kicked back with any sort of leisure activity, but only if their wives kept busy doing household tasks at the same time. If they both did leisure activities, the men's stress level stayed put. It's because women don't want to do anything as a leisure activity that men actually like to do. That's why. If a woman wanted to kick back with you and play freaking Mario Kart with you, or pick up the sticks and play Madden, but women always want to do leisure activities that just aren't on men's radars. A leisure activity for a woman is watching, wanting her husband to watch freaking Real Housewives of Atlanta. No. And guys, I'm telling you, almost everything you would do women would find stress relieving too, but they just don't want to do it because they're selfish. Um, if I would ask Tom to do the dishes after I made dinner, he'd tell me he was going to let them soak. That phrase set me off like a Roman candle. And once again, why do women feel entitled to believe that everything they do is the right way? Then I figured out why. Because women tend to be the ones to do time associated tasks all throughout the day that involve deadlines, like meals and school drop offs. So they are programmed to jump immediately. Responses like later or in a minute treat a task like an option. They rankle me as much as Bartleby's I would prefer not to exasperate his hapless boss. So I read this article about how women are more likely to take on these time associated tasks, whereas men take on tasks in the home that can be done on their time. And they said stuff like washing the car or car maintenance or mowing the lawn. But that doesn't devalue what the man does. And that is the problem. I said it at the beginning of the stream. The problem is everything men do in a household and a marriage and when it comes to fathering children is devalued. The default position is the woman is the superhero and the man is the sidekick. That is the problem. Chill vibes in the house. Good to see you, my friend. He says every time we have fun, women hate seeing that. 100%. 100%. Everything a man does, a woman would find fun too. But there's that stubbornness. Like women will make it a point out of spite to not do what the man does. Said, if my husband and I had known that fighting was what we should have expected when we were expecting, maybe would have maybe we would have been better prepared. Eventually, with the teamwork and talking, we did find our way back to each other. Our daughter is now 7, and one day we will be able to laugh about our diaper genie cage match. Not quite yet, though. Yeah, you'll be able to laugh, not him. Here's the thing. And if you're watching after the fact, how do you feel when a woman that you're with starts to get brolic in your face, like she can physically fight you? Because guys, we know that the woman can't hurt us, but it's the audacity of her to even try. Like what are you? It'd be like me going up to freaking Dwayne the Rock Johnson or John Jones, the UFC champion, and yelling at him when I know he can beat me up. I know it. And you always have to wonder after that, like, what am I doing? Or because honestly, I think that if a woman gets brolic and starts to pump her chest out at you, she doesn't respect you. So I don't think the say respects her husband. I really don't. I think that she sees him as a simp and a sucker, and I, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't get divorced when their child the daughter was a teenager. I guarantee it. Says, not quite yet though. So, what do you do when a child is born and the wife hates the husband? So I found this young lady here on YouTube, and she is giving women tips on what to do if you grow to hate your husband. Let me see here. This is Kayla Cook, and this came out, you know, a, a year ago. Oops, that's not it, is it? Oh yeah, it is. Okay. Okay. Reggie Gamer in the house. Always good to see you, my friend. After a child is born, I thought they despise you before you even meet them. Well, that's true. And then Chill Vibe says, I get upset. I just have to control my b- brown DNA not to lose control. Okay, so let's see what this Kayla Cook girl. This video is called "Why You Hate Your Husband After Having a Baby and How to Cope." And what does cope mean? Cope means how to deal with something difficult. AJ's in the house. Good to see you. How's it going? It and hey guys, AJ had a great stream about celebrating your independence from modern women on his channel. Go check that out. It was fantastic. It was great. So anyway, let's see what she has to say.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're not familiar with my channel, I combine research, knowledge, and experience to give you videos on topics that moms and women truly care about. In this video, I'm going to talk about why the first year of having a baby can be the hardest on a marriage and my top tips for keeping your relationship strong and healthy during that first year. So, my sister in law told me when I was pregnant that the first year of having a baby is the hardest on a marriage. And I think that that was absolutely true for
Mr. Don, thank you for joining me. He says, this is even true for grandmothers. I married a woman and we had to take in her granddaughter. She completely changed when the granddaughters moved in. Oh, man. Yikes. Really? First, like, what? Y- Yikes, man. I said at the beginning of this stream, I've been married before, and women change after they get married, but still in tolerable ways. But I don't have any children, so I I was married for 4 years, and I couldn't imagine how much worse it could have gotten, especially by the end of my marriage, of how my ex could have changed any more to be any worse than that. Oh my god.
us after being married for over 10 years and having a baby pretty late in the game. There's several reasons that make the first year with a baby really hard. And one is the hormone changes. So there's a lot of fluctuating hormones during pregnancy and then after a baby comes as your body acclimates to all these different changes that are going on. With the hormone changes, obviously, can come moodiness, anxiousness, tiredness, and irritability, which can put a damper on a healthy relationship and just make things so much more challenging.
But my problem with that is that why do these women feel like men should have to deal with that? Why? And here's the thing. Women will argue just to argue, whereas men will argue towards like a solution. And so apparently, after a child is born, a woman will just argue and argue, argue, and there will be no end. Ken for Julian in the house from New York, the bottomless pit. Reggie Gamer says this postpartum depression and they hate the husband sounds like some form of horrible roulette for a man to get a child. 100%. Mr. John says, yeah, we're both in our 40s, sex 4 to 5 times a week before the granddaughter moved in. Probably get 2 to 3 times a month now. Ouch, man, yikes. Yeah, you know that, 30% of marriages are sexless, and I don't know what percentage only get, like, once or twice a year maybe. Yep, Ken for Julian, sorry, buddy, from the bottomless pit, and then Chill Vibes says, "That's true, they complain a lot, it's nothing important, so it's annoying." That's 100% true.
Postpartum depression is really common due to hormonal changes.
And one more thing, guys, I wonder if the term postpart I'm not saying postpartum depression wasn't a real thing, but I wonder if that term becoming part of the mainstream has enabled no, has, um, has, like, exacerbated it, has made it okay for a man to just be able to be a punching bag for a woman after she's given birth. I wonder if this was less of a thing before this term was coined. What do you guys think?
But even if you don't have full blown postpartum depression, which I did not have, I felt that the hormone changes did make everything a lot more difficult, especially in a stressful time. Another reason why having a baby in that first year is so challenging is because there's a lot more work added to both of your plates. And this addition of work gives you less time for yourself and less time to give attention and time to your spouse. Addition
And like I said before, men work more hours when a woman is pregnant and after a child is born. Women work less. Okay. Once women don't even see, here's the thing. A guy comes home and gets to hear all about the difficulties the woman's going through. But because she gave birth to the child, she probably doesn't want to hear anything about what the man is going through. And if he brings up any of it, well, did you give birth? I gave birth to your child. It becomes this becomes one sided.
Additionally, especially if you're a stay at home mom or the full time caretaker of a baby, a lot of times you have to take a step back when it comes to your career or things that you're working towards, your goals and aspirations. And that can be really hard when reflecting on our life purpose, especially if you're a really driven person. Having a baby just makes you hit pause on that.
As it should. I want ladies to tell me what's more important than raising something that grew in your body for 9 months. And then look at the rates of women who would rather be stay-at-home moms. Women don't want the smoke of being a man, guys. All these professional women. Uh, uh, I've done live streams about this before. For every one male upper manager in the C-suite that quits, two women quit. 52% of women in science, technology, and engineering, science, technology, engineering, and math fields either go to part time or quit entirely once a child is born. Female physicians are the same way. You guys know that 28% of female physicians are having infertility issues. Women, they don't want the smoke of being a man. They don't want it. They want to try it. So from like 24 when they graduate college up to about 35. Mr. Don says they want the benefits without the responsibility. That is the modern woman, Mr. Don, 100%. They're basically children. Reggie Gaming says, well, when when living was tougher, people probably didn't focus on things like postpartum depression. 100%. My mom and dad, my mom grew up on a farm. They had 8 children, and they had to the kids started contributing to farm work when they were 7, 8 years old. They had kids to work the farm. Have time to sit here and have postpartum depression. Get out of here.
And that can be really challenging for our mental health. When I
Oh,
researched
and one other thing, guys, you know that 75% of women in the United States make less than $70,000 a year. So when they're talking about, oh, I had to give up my career, odds are it's a woman with a bachelor's degree in social work and a master's in social work, $100,000 in debt, making $50,000 a year. The average woman in the United States makes $38,000 a year. Oh, I had to give up my career. If you live in an area like I do, Washington D.C., you guys know that childcare here in the D.C. area is over $2,000 a month. I think it's like $2,300 a month ever since the cough happened. So if a woman has 2 kids and she's making what the average woman is making, you're making enough for childcare, and that's it. I had to give up my career. Get out of here, man.
search what makes marriage so hard after having a baby, the first thing that popped up on Google was this quote. Sociologists theorize that mothers are more unhappy with their marriages after they have children because they tend to take on more of a second shift of work, childcare, and housework, and begin to feel that the relationships are no longer fair. I could definitely empathize with this being a working mom and going after work only a week after having a baby. Some
So let me talk about that real quick. At the federal level, if a woman um, has a baby, she gets 6 weeks of sick leave off and by law. And then after that, she has to take leave without pay or use up her vacation. That's if she has a natural birth. If she has a cesarean, she gets 8 weeks of sick leave off, and then after that, is either come back to work or use vacation or take leave without pay. So, a couple of my jobs, I've known women who came right back to work like she did uh, after giving birth. And here's the thing, ladies, your children are only little once, okay? I had a couple friends who were they were the breadwinner of their family. They were women, and their husbands or their baby's fathers were around when their child took their first step, when their child said their first word, and it just like you've never seen a woman more defeated than when she has to come back to work and she has a picture of her child on her desk and she's wondering, why am I not home with my child right now? Why is my child in some daycare where some woman besides me is bonding with it and taking care of it. But that is the path you chose, ladies. Your children are only young once. And ladies, if you can take the avenue to stay at home with your kids for the first couple of years, take it, or you're gonna have a lot of regret.
Additional hardships that couples face after having a baby are increased stress due to domestic duties doubling, lack of sleep and time for self care, differences in parenting style, financial stress, lack of sex, and body insecurities after pregnancy. So, now let's jump into the tips. So, these tips can be beneficial for both husband, wife, mom, and dad. So, if this video is helpful to you, definitely share it with your spouse if you think it would give them a good perspective. I'm going to go through the tips from the perspective of the mom. So, let's jump right in.
Okay, before we do that, uh, Chill Vibe says, "Yeah, they want a man who makes 500K a year. Get the French toast out of here." R.I.P. Kevin Samuels, the goat. And then Reggie Gamer says, "Stuff like this is why if I have children, then it's going to be through surrogacy as a single parent." Well, Reggie Gamer, just so you know, I hope you don't live in the United States because the average cost of a surrogate is around $80,000 to $100,000 in the United States. So I hope you have. I'm not saying don't do it, but you better have an extra $80 to $100,000 laying around. Uh, Chill Vibe says, "Oh, and you're telling them they're missing out on see the baby growth, saying their first word and taking their first step." Yep. Uh huh. See, women get bent about that kind of stuff. Chill Vibes. See, men, we don't. I remember because I'm a UFC fan, right? And Khabib Nurmagomedov, he had title fights when his second child was born and his third child was born. And these interviewers were like, "Wait a minute, you're here in America training about to fight this fight, but isn't your wife about to give birth?" He's like, "Yeah, so like I'm fighting to submit my legacy, like." They're like, but what about your child's birth? What about your wife giving birth?" He's like, what can I do?" I prayed to Allah to keep her safe, and then when I defend this belt, I'm gonna come home, and see my child. But what is this whole thing where I have to be there and do what? That's how us men feel about it. And Razy Gamer says 8K to 100K is still cheaper than being in a committed relationship with a woman. In this modern age, Razy Gamer, you are exactly correct.
First off, understand your roles. Now, if you're nursing and you're a mother, you are most likely going to be spending the majority of the time with your baby, whether you're working or not working. And that can be really challenging when you don't feel like the responsibilities are split evenly. But you need to understand that
When it doesn't feel like the responsibilities are split evenly. Remember, after a child is born, you will have to live your life through her feelings and her perception of how things are going. You will be her emotional punching bag.
mom's role naturally, again, especially if you're nursing, is going to be the main caretaker, even more so in those first 3 to 4 months. So, my husband wasn't spending that much time with the baby, which did bother me. But I needed to take a step back and reflect and see that, my son needs me. He's nursing a lot. He's also using that for comfort, which in turn did make my main role and responsibility caretaker. And the role and responsibility that my husband took on was obviously to bring stability and income to our family. And both roles are important. And they
There you go, guys. There you go. I guarantee you, he was working more hours, trying to get promoted, getting more training to bring more money into the house. Because remember, married men make more money than single men because they have a family to provide for. Providing for a family it can be, in about 20% of cases or 30% of cases where the wife doesn't leave you, it can be a great motivator for men. It used to be. Society got to where it is because men, we've given our bodies, our backs, our bodies, our spirits our mental health, for our families, and to society as a whole. And once again, women have completely devalued this part of being a man. That's why you don't see women. You know, I was reading this article about how women are putting themselves in a position to be providers by getting these multiple degrees, making six figures and stuff, but they will not provide for a family and they will not take care of a man long term. That's one of the reasons why the housing market is so messed up. Women will not move a man into their house and treat him with the same respect as a woman moving into a man's house. A woman can make $180,000 a year and still want to get with a guy making 250,000. Like women need to recognize what men bring to the table. Um, Chill Vibe says, "Yeah, we think differently from women, so that doesn't really affect us like them." 100%. Reggie Gamer says, "I mean, it's 80K. That's all. If you had a girlfriend or a wife and they left you and took the kids, you would lose a lot more than 80K. So I'm agreeing with you on that. Raise your gamer, 100% true. Most jobs men only do because they can take care of their family, 100%. And then Mr. Don says, modern women are far more expensive than women from 50 years ago and are far less valuable. Inflation, I suppose. Boom, Mr. Don. Thank you for being here tonight. You were spot on, my friend.
They aren't going to be those set roles forever. So just understanding that both of us had important roles, we were taking on what naturally fit best for our family, and they weren't necessarily going to stay the same forever. Number two is to acknowledge that the overall workload has probably substantially increased. So you may feel like you're doing 150% of the work that you were doing prior, and that's probably true. But you need to understand that the other person also feels like they're doing 150% of the work as well. And that's just because the overall workload has increased. Obviously, there's the caretaking, there's the cleaning. I felt like I was constantly cleaning up after the baby. Every single room we were in left a mess. So there is just so much more that needs to be done, and understanding that both parties are doing more of the work.
Yeah, that's an important one because this whole scheme I've been saying, they need to recognize the contributions that men, husbands, fathers contribute to this dynamic. And also, I say it again, guys, the best way to not get nagged is make sure that the woman that you're with accepts the way you do things. If you're gonna change a diaper, if you're gonna clean the dishes, you will do it your way. If she tries to start nagging you and you need to get out of here or you do it yourself. I've never been nagged in a relationship when it comes to things around the house. Because I tell every girl I live with, I'm gonna do it my way. Well, it's not up to how I would do it. Well, then you do it. So, that little break you wanna take while I'm vacuuming the floor or doing the laundry, give that break away by doing it your way. Then they usually sit down and I get to do it my way. Don't let a woman nag you guys. Don't do it.
And that brings me to my next tip. If you don't feel like your husband or partner is pulling their weight or doing what needs to be done, simply give them specific things and ask for help. So, for example, it would really help me out if you made dinner tonight, or it would really help me out if you took out the trash and cleaned up the garage today. Because as women, and I know this for myself, my husband would be like, "Oh, do you need help with anything?" And I'm like, "Well, there's so many things that I need help with right now. Like, how can you not see that our
And the worst part about it is he probably has stuff that he needs help with too, but guess what? They're at work, not at home. So he gets to see and help you with all of his stuff, but you don't get to go to work and help him with his stuff, do you? God, women, man, I swear.
house is a mess, the dishes need to be done, dinner needs to be made?" And that is just naturally how a lot of men are. So don't be scared to give specific jobs, especially if your husband is asking what you need help with. My next tip is to praise instead of criticize. So, just because you have been spending a lot of time with the baby doesn't mean that everything your husband does is wrong.
Boom, there it is. So what I say, guys, what I say, women will feel like everything is wrong, and you have to prove to them somehow that what you're doing is right. And sometimes that can be a little bit. A lot of times it can be a lot, and it varies from day to day. Because remember what she said at the beginning, all the hormones and stuff. There should you one thing in this situation. If I were in the situations, I would write a tangible list of things that I could do where she would leave me the hell alone. So when I come home from work, I'm gonna do this, 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 and this with the baby. And if I do that, you leave me alone. I don't want to hear it from your mouth. But if you just leave it to women's feelings, it's gonna be a long night, guys. Make a tangible list. Kind of make a baby contract, I guess.
A good rule of thumb is if you're not genuinely concerned about the safety of your child, let your husband do it his way. And if you want him to do it differently, try to say, hey, babe, can I give you some pointers on that? Or what's really helped me when doing that is X, Y, and Z.
D- Does this sound like something you want to sign up for, guys? Does it? Sounds appealing, doesn't it? Not in the slightest. Heck no.
And then when he is doing something really well, make sure to praise instead of criticizing. So you definitely want to give more praise than criticism, because doing that positive reinforcement, offering help rather than just, ordering that it be done a certain way, is going to promote your husband to spend even more time with the baby and not be afraid to actually help you when it comes to caretaking. My next
Razy Gamer says she sounds like she isn't efficient in accomplishing house tasks. Probably trying to do more useless emotional labor than actual labor. Razy Gamer, you are on fire tonight. Women do this emotional labor stuff all throughout society. And it's normally stuff that does like let's take in business for example. I did a um a video about the extra labor that women have to take on in the workplace. And a lot of it is stuff that doesn't contribute to the profit of the company, i.e., diversity, equity, and inclusion activities. Who cares? DEI, who cares? The whole social aspect of the job, like, being there emotionally for other employees. Who cares? It's not fair that women have to be there emotionally for their employees. It's not fair that women have to focus on on inclusion and other activities. Well, then stop doing it then, because no one's asking you to do it. And a lot of what Reggie Gamer was saying is a lot of the emotional labors that women take on the house. The guy doesn't care if you do it or not. You care, ladies. You care. There's stuff that guys we just don't care.
next tip is to try to put everything into perspective. Now, the first year with baby is supposed to be such a wonderful time, but it can also be very, very stressful and hard. And oftentimes I was like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe people have multiple kids. Or, they're raising this kid as a single mom. So, what really helped me when I felt very stressed and overwhelmed and tired and even angry sometimes was thinking, I have it really good. Like, I have a husband that's helping me. I have the financial stability to hire help if we needed it. And, I'm not doing this alone. We've prepared our whole lives for this. So, if you're feeling really stressed and overwhelmed, even though it can be hard, just try to put it in perspective that you are probably better off than a lot of other new moms and you can do this. I
And that's 100% true. Because you can see all these single moms out here, guys. Like, I don't feel bad for single mothers, man. And ladies, if you have a husband in the house helping you with a child, especially in the Black community, you are in the top 20% of women, because almost 80% of our children are born out of wedlock. 80%. If your man is there trying, don't get on his case unless you want to end up doing it all by yourself. Because I advocate if a woman, if you're not married and a woman gets too difficult, leave. Give her a check. That's it. And if the woman had a child against your will, you shouldn't even be there in the first place. So, guys, if you're not married to a woman and she is being too difficult and she wants to try it by herself and she's strong and independent and she's waving that in your face, well, then you let her give it a try.
Last tip is to have sex. And honestly, especially right after you have the baby, probably the last thing you want to do is be intimate with your partner. But when you are ready, just give that time to your husband. It's something that men really do need a lot more than women. And it is going to make your relationship better, and it's going to keep everything healthy, and it's going to make you both feel more connected. So definitely take that time to be intimate with each other, even though there is a lack of time that's available. So
And guys, we're so low maintenance, man. Like women always assume that it needs to be like this deep, fiery, passionate sex, like at the beginning of the relationship. A lot of us guys will be happy with a lot less than that. A lot less. I'm not even going to go into it because I don't want the stream to get taken down. But you guys know what I'm talking about. Raging Gamer says, I bet if I hired her as a maid, she can get everything done, but can't do that for herself and her husband who is paying for the house. 100% true. Raging Gamer, you are on fire, my bro. On fire. That's 100% true.
So that wraps up my tips for keeping your marriage healthy in that first year with baby. I hope this was helpful. If you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, it really does get easier, especially after that year mark, and it just gets more and more fun. So if you're watching this video and you're like, oh my gosh, having a baby is making my life absolutely crazy, it does get better and better as you go.
You see how many times she said my in that outro? Be careful of women that say my kids, my pregnancy, my, like Johnny Gill. Because once again, what's that saying, guys? Um, the kids are hers. That's how women view this whole thing. You, you're not the father of a child. You're just some dude. It's the sad reality of modern women. You are some guy in this house until proven otherwise. Prove to me like you, because guys, I always say on my channel, don't ever let a woman try to tell you how to be a man and tell you how to be a father. She doesn't get to do that because you can't tell her how to be a woman and how to be a mother. I dare some women to say, well, you're not being a good father. I'd be, oh, really? You're not being a good husband. Women with feminism, women have given up the right to be able to do that. Although you see that now more than ever. It's either I get to tell you how to be a woman and you get to tell me how to be a man, or neither of us get to do it. It's just sad, man. Doesn't this make you want to go out and get married and have kids with a woman, guys? Doesn't it make you want to get on Bumble or Plenty of Whales and find some girl to have a kid with? And and another thing about this, I've been dating, right? And I see these women who are 35 plus and are ready to settle down and have kids. So Tyrone and Chad got to enjoy you while you were young, enthusiastic. Your body was tight. But me, you're expecting us to get right together and have kids. So I don't get to enjoy the youthful, thin, exuberant you. I get the you that's ready to have children, stretch marks, cut her hair short, hate me after the child is born. That's the woman I get to have. It's not happening. No, it's not happening. This next article, I'm probably only going to go through a little bit of it because it's kind of long, and I didn't realize this was going to take an hour of the time. Make sure to like the video if you're here and subscribe if you haven't. I'd really appreciate it. And let's look at the first quarter of this next article here, because this one is a good one. Women, my postpartum depression. He doesn't understand. He's going through stuff too, but women don't care. This is called "Having a Baby Can Rock a Marriage and Life Post Children Can Be a Challenge." So this is from the BBC. So you're going to see a lot of English words here. Rachel Gamer says, though the husband should have seen how she deals with young kids before marrying her. Yep, that's 100% true. Keep those eyes and ears open, guys. Says the arrival of a child can be joyous, but it can also cause conflict, even in the most rock solid relationships. Holly knew her life would change when she became a parent, and when her first ultrasound showed she was pregnant with two babies, she knew it would change even more. What she wasn't prepared for was just how much it would impact her relationship with her partner of 5 years. God, I hate this word, partner. Ugh. Soon after the birth, they began having explosive arguments. They talked about breaking up. One major trigger, says Canada-based Holly. Well, that's another problem. Canada, like Australia, is an ephanous, misandrous wasteland. One major trigger, says Canada-based Holly, was the division of labor. Her partner did most. Okay. Listen to this, guys. Her partner did most of the household chores, cleaning, laundry, cooking, but she needed more help with parenting itself. I had an emergency C section. My body was falling apart. I was feeding two babies 24/7, not sleeping. And if one of them was crying, he would be like, "Oh, they just want you." And that's probably true. Rather than stepping in, she says, I had so much rage towards him. More parents share Holly's experience than we often realize. Research has shown the vast majority of relationships change after having a baby. A 2021 study from the University of Bourne showed that on average, relationship satisfaction fluctuates over time and declines during the first 10 years of being together, whether couples are parents or not. But throughout the trajectory, satisfaction is lower for parents than for non parents. Meanwhile, the more children a couple has, the less likely they are to feel satisfied with their relationship. Mothers of infants, particularly, are the least happy. 38% of married moms have high satisfaction compared to 62% of married women without children. So, guys, 38%. So the rest hate you after the child is born. It shouldn't surprise that parenthood presents challenges to a partnership. For the vast majority of couples, what psychologists call protective relationship factors such as communication, intimacy, and time together take a hit when a baby is born. Throw in stressors including sleep deprivation, financial anxiety, and it often can seem impossible for a couple to avoid more conflict or tension after having a child. Um, let's see, eh, the results say experts it's parents who feel isolated. Okay, wait, hold on. According to both experts and couples, prenatal courses rarely address the topic. Social media is an idealized highlight of smiling parents with babies, and even friends and family can be weary of opening up, sometimes fearing it will make their loved ones turn against their significant other. Yeah, don't talk about this stuff outside your relationship. Come on now. You don't want to do that. There is another part here that I wanted to read. Okay. Um, one parent who wishes she and her husband had discussed these issues earlier is Jancy Dunn, a New York-based journalist and author of How Not to Hate Your Husband. Uh, when she fell pregnant, you see that? She and her husband had been married for 10 years. We assumed that we had worked out all of, or at least the majority of the kinks in our relationship, and that we had a nice solid foundation which would build to a family, she says. They figured the new rules would fall into place seamlessly. Her husband already shouldered half the housework, so she assumed the labor of parenting would be equally split too. Rather than discuss potential issues that might arise, they spent their time talking about what color they paint the nursery, what they named the baby on the registry. Okay, now listen to this, guys. Dunn says after she gave birth, it was just this tsunami of unrealistic expectations and fatigue and resentment towards each other. She quickly found herself in the role of default parent. You see that, guys? Default parent, like everything she does is right, which made her bristle. At the same time, the more her husband deferred to her on parenting, the more adept she became at it, and the more she micromanaged him when he tried to take over a common behavior called maternal gatekeeping. Now, this is important. I was 50% of the problem, says Dunn, adding that she developed a temper that still causes me a lot of shame. She would yell at her husband. He would retreat into his phone, traumatized, which made her even angrier. Frustrated and finding that attempts at communication only seemed to lead to fighting, she considered separation. Guys, this is exactly what I'm talking about. And it's funny because after the fact, she realized that she was a demon. She was. And just think about how much guys throughout time immemorial have put up with with women when it comes to marriage, relationships, and children. It's becoming untenable, guys. Untenable. I'm telling you, it's one of the reasons why I don't have children. Once again, when a child is born, this whole default parent thing, she quickly found herself in the role of default parent. This how do you get a woman to not do that, especially with current society and how society uh, perpetuates this deification of women giving birth. Oh, I gave birth to this child, so you need to do it my way. And guys just okay, honey, sure, honey, okay. You got to avoid this at all costs, guys. This guy is in for a long, miserable life. There's one more. It says London-based Andy says he and his wife also developed feelings of resentment towards each other after the births of their two children, despite having a very solid foundation for their marriage. Their son is highly sensitive and for the first 2 months wouldn't sleep at all unless he was held. With their second child, the scale of time and effort required to parent and maintain the household only compounded. Amid this lack of bandwidth, Andy says he also felt a great deal of pressure to be a present caregiver. The responsibilities were so many and the demand was so high that I just found it totally overwhelming. I found it really made me burn out until the point where I just cried most days at the end of the day with the stress and the pressure. What a wimp. Seriously? This, he says, led to conflict with his wife, not fights, he says, but an underlying resentment made the atmosphere tense. Guys, once again, who wants to sign up for this? Who? This is why the birth rate is going down. This is why men in almost every Western country are avoiding this and having children altogether. So many men are doing this. I said it before. I'll say it again. MGTOW passports are the only way until women realize that men are necessary. Okay, fathers are necessary. Men in the home are necessary. All right. I'm only going to go for about an hour tonight. So if you're watching this after the fact, let me know what you think about this in the comments. Guys, don't let a woman nag you. Don't let a woman tell you how to be a man. Don't let a woman tell you how to be a father. If women and men are equal, it's either you get to tell her how to be a mother and a wife, or it's either both get to do it or neither get to do it. One of the two. Okay. I'm gonna wrap this up. Ken for Julian, Chill Vibes, Reggie Gaver, Mr. Don, AJ, thank you for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. I was supposed to do a show with Naomi at 5 o'clock today, but she had something she had to do. And then I was going to do a show about why so many NFL players date and marry crazy women, but I wasn't able to put the show together in time. So thank you for your patience. I know it's like 11 o'clock on Sunday night. Happy July 4th. I'm I'm proud to be an American. I hope you are too. I was actually watching this video about this guy was on Bill Maher, and he said he doesn't understand why so many young people are being raised to hate this country. And and I'm with him 100%. Look, I'm tall and I'm black. I have my issues with police and racism, but I still love America. So I hope you guys get to do something on July 4th. Don't drink Bud Light. Don't buy any Anheuser-Busch products. But make sure to hang out with friends, family, barbecue, drink a beer or two, and I will catch you on the next live stream, guys. Thanks for joining me tonight. I appreciate it. Have a good one.